It's truly wonderful to be here with you this evening. And by way of background, the Interfaith Center of New York's Religious Leaders and Courts Roundtables began in 2004, just a year after I became a family court judge. These roundtables were inspired by former New York State Chief Judge, the late, the great, the most honorable Judith Kaye. It was her problem-solving court mentality and endeavors that I currently am now privileged to lead, and it was our court system's recognition of the need to connect deeply with our community leaders. These roundtables allowed religious leaders from across the 5 boroughs of New York City to learn about civic and legal issues that impacted their diverse communities. And in my opinion, much, much more important than that, when I had the privilege to participate in these roundtable discussions, it offered judges and members of the court an opportunity to learn from our religious leaders and to develop cultural sensitivity and enhance cultural humility. Spin-off events included day-long mobile legal clinics at 5 houses of worship, domestic violence prevention training with Connect Faith, other clergy and faith leader court events, and a pioneering supervised exchange program for families at St. Luke's AME Church. I deeply treasure the relationship we have developed in the courts with the Interfaith Center of New York, and I know greater things are in store for us moving forward. As someone who has spent my entire life and judicial career seeking to bring greater equity and to promote meaningful access to our legal system here in New York and beyond, it is my great honor, my true joy, my delight to introduce our next James Parks Morton honoree, the one, the only, the legendary Ruby Bridges. Quite frankly, this is the defining privilege of my lifetime to provide these words of introduction for someone who needs no introduction, truly. Ruby Bridges as icon and pioneer in our nation's ongoing civil rights struggle. She has inspired me throughout my life. It is her shoulders upon which I stand. It is in her arms where I draw strength, and it is from her embrace, and I feel that embrace deep, deep, deep in my soul to do what is mine to do in this season as we seek to make our courts the very best they can be for the communities we are privileged to serve. Ruby Bridges was born in Mississippi in 1954, the very same year and just a few short months after the United States Supreme Court handed down its landmark decision, we know it, Brown versus Board of Education, ruling that separate educational facilities are inherently unequal and ordering the integration of public schools. Law and legal decisions are mere words until they are acted upon. It is our Ruby Bridges. We are honoring her today and should recognize her impact every day. Ruby Bridges breathed life into that critically important legal decision. The Bridges family moved early in Ruby's life to New Orleans, where they courageously enrolled their daughter in that all-white and not at all welcoming school. Ruby's historic and purpose-filled walk to and through that front door of the William Frantz Elementary School, accompanied by her mother and federal marshals on November 14, 1960, was immortalized in many iconic photographs and in Norman Rockwell's famous painting entitled "The Problem We All Live With." And yes, it is the problem we still all live with. Those depictions of Ruby Bridges taking that courageous walk remain tattooed permanently in my mind and etched deeply in my heart. As an adult, Ruby Bridges raised her own family, worked full-time, and wrote the New York Times bestseller, "This Is Your Time," which followed the publication of her award-winning autobiography, "Through My Eyes." She also established the Ruby Bridges Foundation for Youth Leadership Training and is the recipient of numerous awards and honorary doctorate degrees, including the NAACP Martin Luther King Award and the Presidential Citizens Medal. And Ruby Bridges gets to add tonight's award to her remarkable collection. I do not have words sufficient to describe the impact of Ruby Bridges on my life and on all of our lives. So it is time to stop listening to my words and to turn instead to hers. I ask that you bring your full attention to the video screen before you. Join me as we witness Ruby Bridges' gracious and generous acceptance message, and also join me as we thank her from the very bottom of our hearts for all she has done throughout her remarkable life, and most importantly, we thank Ruby Bridges for being.